What is the strangest thing you've seen that you cannot explain? For about 10 years a man would call my home, ask for me, and then ask me if my feet were ticklish. This was 30 or so years ago, no caller ID or anything like that. I would engage him if my family was home. If I said my feet were ticklish, he'd ask me to ask the person sitting closest to me to tickle them. He always hung up before we could ask questions to figure him out. Sometimes he'd get me on a payphone. Like, I'd be walking home from school and a payphone would ring. It was always him. Still don't know who it was. That's absolutely horrifying. Living in a dorm. No roommate. Night before 2-hour open book final. I put my book in the middle of the floor, so I'll stumble over it on the way out. The floor has nothing else on it. In the morning it's gone. I look all over the room. Can't find it. I think I'm hysterically blind. So I feel over every inch of the floor with my hands. Nothing. I go get a cup of coffee and come back. Still nothing. By now there's only 1 hour for the test. I go anyway and do the best I can. Naturally when I get back the book is in the middle of the floor exactly where I put it. Probably a prank. But how? I'm not that heavy a sleeper. Nobody took credit for it. Not exactly seen, but it's strange. I was around 6 and on Wednesday evening I went to bed. I woke up and it was Friday. I remember asking my mom, why is it Friday when yesterday it was Wednesday? She said yesterday was Thursday. Obviously. I asked her what I did on Thursday because the last thing I remember is going to sleep on Wednesday. She named some activities and I remembered none of that. I never found out why I don't remember the Thursday. This happened to my friend a couple of weeks ago. Hers were caused by medication that she sometimes took, but this time she completely blacked out and woke up days later. During that time she apparently woke up, did chores around the house, and talked to people, but she only remembers going to sleep and then waking up 2 days later. It was super weird. Not only that, a medicine she took before had this effect, but it also never happened again. Same thing happened to me on Ativan. I blacked out and ended up taking way too many and ended up in the emergency room. So now there are 2 whole days of my life I don't remember. It was really creepy going through my pictures and seeing ones I didn't remember taking. Years ago, when my wife was pregnant with our second child and about to give birth, my mom came to stay with us for a few days to help take care of our oldest child. One early evening mom asked for a pen, paper and an envelope. When I gave them to her, she wrote on the paper, sealed it in the envelope, and gave it to me, saying, "Put this in your pocket and don't open it. You'll know when," she said. 30 minutes later my wife announced it was time to go to the hospital. She was in labor. So we did, and about 9 hours later our second daughter was born at 3:45 am. She weighed 8 pounds, 11 ounces and was 20 inches long. This being pre-cell phone days, I called my mom from the hospital to tell her the news. She answered the phone and immediately said, "Before you say anything, open the envelope." I did. It said, "Girl, 3:45 am, 8 pounds, 11 ounces, 20 inches. I kept that paper for years. When my mom died, I went to our documents safe where we kept it, but it was gone. I'm sorry to say, but your mom was a witch Mayo. Probably the second daughter is too. That's what she was waiting for." Didn't happen to me, but my mom. She was going through a tough patch, not making a lot of money. Single mom with 2 kids. Was stressed over bills, but had just enough to cover them. Unfortunately it left us with no money. She was a hard worker and would do multiple shifts at the hospital. Still, it was hard this particular month. She was sweeping and prayed for help. As she turned around to empty the dustbin into the trash, there was a crisp $100 bill perfectly laying on top of the filled trash can. No one lived at our house with us. She was never able to explain it. There's an old story in my family from the only Catholics. This took place in the 1930s to my grandma's adopted cousin's husband's single mother. She was a widow working and raising 3 boys alone. She misplaced an envelope with the rent money in it. She and her 3 sons scoured the house and everywhere it could have been. The mother prayed to Street Anthony for help finding it. The next morning, there was a knock on the front door. Her son hollers sarcastically, "Who is it?" "Street Anthony," She goes to open the door and a man says, "I believe you're looking for this," and hands her the envelope with her rent money in it. She looks down at it, then up to thank him and has gone. My family used to travel between Utah and Nevada a few times a year. When I was growing up, we often saw wildlife on the side of the road or crossing the road. There's one thing that still baffles all of us, though. It was in the middle of the day, on a long, hot, empty stretch of road. I was a teen. Myself, my mom, and a couple of my siblings saw something scurry across the road. It looked like a huge egg, the size of an ostrich egg, maybe larger, with two skinny legs and feet poking out the bottom of it. We cannot figure out what it possibly could have been. I was driving away from a gas station. Out of nowhere, a guy in a suit comes running up to my minivan and starts yanking the door. As if he knew me, he began pleading, "Come on, let me in." Luckily my doors were locked. I asked him who the hell he was through my window. He looked genuinely surprised that I wouldn't let him in. After I refused to let him in, his facial expression inverted, as if he just realized something horrible. He let go of my car, said something to the effect of, "You're one of them, aren't you?" Then he ran away behind the gas station and into the woods. Full suit and tie, nice shoes, extremely frantic in nature. Zero explanation. I'm praying it was some elaborate troll or meth or something, because the look in that man's eyes was pure terror when I didn't let him in. This one is so unique because you were both having a terrifying experience, just not together. LMAO. Since this is almost certainly mental illness, it's heartbreaking to think that his terror at the realization that you were one of them was completely real for him. Poor guy. It wasn't what I saw so much as felt. I was on my way to Petersburg, a small island in Alaska, but the runway was too foggy, so I had to stay in Juneau at a hotel for the night. Anyway, the next morning I was sleeping and had my hand dangling in between the bed and the wall, and I swear on everything I felt something grabbed my hand. It had a grip like a very firm handshake, and it literally woke me up out of a dead sleep. I actually got up and checked under the bed and nothing was there. It was very weird. Did you stay up with the light on, rocking and sobbing in the corner the rest of the night? Seems like the only logical thing to do after that. You could also do a bunch of meth and try to fight the demon. You know, since you won't be getting any sleep either way. Was sitting in my lounge room alone one night watching TV. Heard clear as day someone coming up the stairs barefoot. I thought it was just a family member coming up the stairs, but then had the duck realization that I was home alone. For some reason I just sat there looking at the doorway waiting for whatever was coming up these stairs to walk through the door. Heard the staircase creaking and everything. Heard the bare feet get to the top of the stairs, step onto the tiles, and take the 3 to 4 steps it would take to be in sight of the doorway to the lounge room I'm sitting in. But nothing came through the door. Sat there for about 5 seconds waiting. Said to myself out loud, "Duck dealing with that right now," and kept watching TV. I've heard other things like glass moving and footsteps and all that, but the second most notable thing I can't explain was me and my mum hearing something talk to our dog downstairs in a mumbled male voice we couldn't understand. If I heard that on my own, I'd have just thought it was my brain playing tricks, but my mum also heard it. Maybe your dog was practicing how to talk. My 3-year-old daughter walked up to my husband one night and straight up said, "Grandpa's dead." Few moments later we get a call from my husband's sister saying that their father had passed away. Happened a few months back. Still creeps me out. Was driving home from work one afternoon with my brother and cousin in the car. As we were sitting in traffic, I noticed high up in the sky and way out in the distance a small motionless black square. I pointed it out, and both my brother and my cousin spotted it quickly, so I know it wasn't in my head. It just remained still for about 45 minutes, and then the sun had set, and it was too dark to spot it any longer. It just stayed in the exact same spot the whole time, and while it was really far away you could still tell it was a perfect square shape. Once I got home I went online to see if there were any mentions of it anywhere, and there was nothing. To this day I still think about it and wonder WTF I was looking at. I had a similar experience few years ago. Big black square up in the sky on my way to work. Bothered the hell out of me. Few days later I saw it again. Said duck work. Gotta go chase that thing. Got close enough to see it was a cylindrical hot air balloon. Boss didn't quite understand, but was pretty easy going. That being said, I just did a quick Google and can't seem to find mention of it online. That was in Saskatoon, Canada. Outside my bedroom window was a paddock, and one morning I saw a rabbit running across towards the woods behind the paddock. It was a minimum of 5 foot tall. Edit, a little more detail and response to some common theories. It was bigger than a Flemish. I know they can get over 4 feet when stretched, but this lad was closer to 5, while still all hunched up. I had been awake for over an hour, so it wasn't a dream. My ex was with me and saw it as well. Same exact description as me. It was the brownish grey of a wild hare. The most rational explanation I can come up with, but still don't believe, is that it was a large grey kangaroo and was missing its tail. That would make it look more rabbit-like and could explain the way it moved. Question mark? You saw the Easter Bunny, my friend. Mayo, I guess my 20-year-old brain overlooked the simplest solution. As a full-grown adult, I was telling my mother about this house I was in with a dream I had. It was brown, had 2 bedrooms, 2 floors, L-shaped stairs. I went into full detail about this house from my dream. Anyway, apparently the house I described was the house I was born in. Not like born. I was born in a hospital. But the house my family lived in for 2 years prior to my birth. That we all moved out of when I was 7 or 8 months old. At first I thought maybe my brain got it from pictures I had seen. But honestly, the level of detail wasn't shown in any pictures we had of me at such a young age. Mostly they were close-ups, so you couldn't really see the background much. Best guess to this day is my brain picking up really old and obscure memories. Other than that, I'm not sure how TF I knew anything about this house, let alone the layout, furniture setup, etc. Every once in a while I'll go to drive past a random place and be like I was there in a dream once, and realize that my brain probably picked it up subconsciously the last time I went past it. It's really odd what your brain picks up and saves to memory that you don't consciously notice. I was taking a trip with my then girlfriend, and we had to cross the Hudson River to get to where we were going. There are only a handful of bridges across, and I know them all from having grown up in the area. On that particular trip we were supposed to take the Bear Mountain Bridge, but I got off the wrong exit and passed it. We decided it wasn't a big deal. The next bridge, the Newborough Beacon, was actually closer to where we were going. It would just bring us over a little bit past our destination, but not enough to really matter, so we kept on driving, not really paying specific attention to where we were, since it was probably 20-30 minutes until we got there. Well, we never crossed the Newborough Beacon that day. We also never crossed the Bear Mountain, and we certainly didn't drive an extra half an hour to the mid-Hudson or turn around and go back to the tap. When we did take a minute to check where we were and how close the bridge was, we found we were already on the other side of the river. No bridge. We were just already there. So either there's a secret tunnel somewhere under the river, we had our memories erased, or we found some kind of spatial rift somewhere in the Hudson Valley. Had something very similar happen about 18 years ago. A friend and I were driving what would normally be a 3-hour drive. A little way in, we hit the heaviest rain/lightning storm I've ever driven through. I was driving about half the speed limit and could barely make out the car in front of us. When that car pulled over, clearly wasn't confident driving in that weather. I drove on for about 15-20 minutes before also pulling over as we passed a small town. The rain eased off and we continued on our way. When we got home, according to our phone/the wall clock in the house/the car clock, the trip had taken less than 2 hours. We had somehow shaved a whole hour off the trip by going almost half speed for most of the way. I used to work nights. It was a fairly simple job and I was pretty much alone in an abandoned building. I was basically security to prevent people from coming in and clearing people out if there were any. Occasionally you get some teens hanging about, the odd homeless person or some YouTubers filming, but nothing out of the ordinary. I understand that the night and your brain can play tricks on you in the dark and when you're tired, but I don't know how to explain what I saw, and I'm sure there is a logical explanation for it. I just went into a room. It was pretty much empty. I saw 3 shadows on the wall, but there was nothing to explain how the 3 human shadows were there. It was just really creepy, and I got really bad vibes. So I just went out, and I saw a very tall, slim, not of this world figure on the other end of the hallway. So that was me done. I know there's probably a reasonable explanation for it, but it was certainly unexplainable at the time. I was in rap when I was in college. All the RAs would come back a week before the winter semester started for training, which meant no students were back in the dorms. We were the only ones in the building. One night, I heard the door to my shared bathroom open. The sound of the door knob turning woke me up, so I kind of groggily said my suitmate's name. She would sometimes come through the bathroom to talk or ask me for advice. Then I realized my suitemate was on an extended holiday in Italy, so no one should have been in our suite at all. I immediately shot up and looked toward the bathroom door. It was almost pitch black in my room, but next to the bathroom door, I could see the perfect outline of a human face wearing a flat brimmed hat. I couldn't see the details of the face, but I could see shadows where the eyes, mouth, and nose would have been. It was as if someone was standing next to the door, staring at me. I had no idea what to do, because no one was back in the dorms. I knew that the nearest RA was 2 floors away, and wouldn't hear me scream for help. I stared at the face for a few seconds, and it stared back. Then I shifted slightly on the bed and it completely disappeared. I got up to check the door, and it had been closed the whole time. It's been almost 7 years and it still freaks me out when I think about it. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.